Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Welcome to our webinar. Yes, sir.
The Sister Bina Jose, the principal of the college, Dr. Sister Bina Jose, the coordinator of the IQAC, Vimala College, teachers, research scholars, everybody else who have joined this session. So this is, I'm afraid, not a very scholarly lecture, and probably scholarly lectures normally do not work when you are talking about research. So yeah, this is basically I am talking to you as a researcher. I started research in 1987 as a research supervisor, which I have been for the last 20 odd years. So this is my experience. Definitely some reading, my experience as a researcher, and all the sundry things I have gathered on the way. As a teacher, I've been teaching for the last 32 years. So my area is basically translation studies. I do a bit of pedagogy, language teaching, and of course linguistics. So this is I'll speak for about an hour, roughly an hour, and then leave the session open for interaction, which probably you can half an hour or even more. I don't mind if there are questions. You can ask the questions directly, or you can type it in the chat box. I'll go through those questions and respond to them. I can't assure you that I'll give, I can give very effective answers or responses, but definitely I'll try. So as of now, I have a secure connection. But even if it breaks off, don't worry. I have a parallel connection set up. So I'll be rejoining if something happens in the middle. Okay. So let me begin. So let me first talk about the sources of research. All of you have looked that up. What kind of sources are they which you can use for research? Okay, there is a conventional division between primary sources and secondary sources. Everybody knows that. Okay. So for instance, a novel can be a primary source. Okay. And a critique, even a review of this novel can be secondary. So this division between primary and secondary. And there are, of course, in-between cases. Okay. Like, for instance, an autobiography, for instance, which depending upon what you choose, you can call a primary source or a secondary source. A novel, for instance, can also become a secondary source sometimes. Okay, when you are investigating a particular historical period, for example, the novel might become a secondary source because you'll find something in the novel which connects you to your research. Yeah, that often happens. Marx said very famously that it is in Balzac's fiction, the 19th century French writer Balzac's fiction, that you get more about the history of France between 1818 and 1848. That is a famous statement he made, rather than from the works of official historians. Okay, so primary, secondary sources, depending upon what your research topic or research area is. Okay, now there is a tertiary source. Probably, I don't know if you have discussed that in your research or in your research conversations, in research forums. A tertiary source is simply an index of primary and secondary sources. For instance, an encyclopedia, okay, a bibliography. Indices which give you information about what books are available on a particular topic. So this tertiary source is very important because if it is exhaustive, think of a tertiary source like Malayala Grantha Sojika, K.M. Govi. He died recently. So K.M. Govi's Malayala Grantha Sojika will tell you in several, sections. It's well classified. So you have a section on translation, for example, which again, it is further divided into translations from different languages, genres like fiction, poetry, drama. So if you look that up very exhaustively, you'll find material. If you're doing research on, let us say, fiction in Malayalam, if you're doing research on translations into Malayalam in a particular period of time, you'll find all the available information on it. There are things which are outside the which you can't find in the index, but nevertheless, the index as such is a good source of information. So I am just wondering how much of tertiary materials you are using. Tertiary sources. Tertiary sources are very important. Now, this is what I was thinking right at the beginning. Okay, suppose your sources are not, in quotes, authentic, not, let us say, officially recognized. All these words have to be given in quotes. Okay, suppose it is just an oral text. Okay, so let us say you are investigating folklore in Malayalam. Okay, and you come across a song. Okay, you hear it from an old woman. Okay, a granny. She sings this song, and you are you're an investigator in folklore. Okay, so what do? You now you have recorded. You can record a song on your mobile recorder. Okay, so this song I heard long ago. Okay, I'll sing that song, although in a very bad voice. Ali pokere avili chakkara avada vekkada maduram nokkate. This I heard from my grandmother. Okay, my grandmother would have heard it from somebody else. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I sang it to a niece of mine. Okay, she is now 26 years old. She has a small daughter, and I sang the same song to her daughter. Now look at the number of generations, 6 generations, orally transmitted. Okay, so what is your source? What is your source for this particular song? Okay, your source is just this oral recapitulation, memory. Okay, you record it, and you have you can use this as evidence. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not printed anywhere. You don't find this printed anywhere. Okay, it's just in the repertoire of communal memory. Okay, political unconscious, or whatever you want to call it, social unconscious. So this can be used as a source. That's my point. Okay, very well. You can record the song. You can conduct an interview. You can use this video as a source. This is authentic. This is acceptable. That's what I'm trying to say. Although not recognized as such by many people, but it's useful. Okay, think of a private investigation I conducted on the road, which is a very broad road which passes in front of my home in Kozhikode. So this was once a very small 1-foot track. Okay, so not very long ago, let us say some 70 years ago. Okay, so it's grown into this big road, and I have a person living in my neighborhood who saw everything happening. How this 1-foot track was converted first into a mud road, not very broad. This 1-foot track was submerged in water for most of the monsoon. So people, especially women working in the cashew factory, P.S. Leslie cashew factory in Karaparam, which is in my neighborhood. So it was primarily for them that this was converted into a mud road, way back, let us say in the 1940s. Okay, so this person living in my neighborhood can give a very authentic account of this, how this happened. What are the social forces at work? Okay, all kinds of political formations, the Communist Party, the Indian National Congress, both parties being strong in this area. how they set about doing it, how volunteers appeared on the scene. So all these accounts are from a single person. Okay, so I record this. Okay, I can use this as evidence. I can use this as material for my research. So these are unconventional sources that you can use, that you get in very commonly in languages and social sciences. The existence of a particular expression in Malayalam or Tamil or Kannada, any language which is spoken in the area where you live, where you work. Okay, so these unconventional records are, these unconventional sources are now acceptable in research. Okay, so these sources, these unconventional sources are acceptable in research and they are widely used as far as I am aware. This is the first idea I wanted to share with you. Okay, now, yeah, even if your sources are not reliable, if you have a doubt about your source, you can simply mention that in your writing. When you're writing the thesis, you can say, so these are the sources from which I have collected the material, and some of these sources do not appear to be reliable for the following reasons. Okay, so the ideal thing in all these gathering information from sources, material from sources, and presenting them is this honesty that you carry throughout in your research. Say what you find, say what you think about things you find, okay, with evidence. You can't offer offhand remarks saying that these are unreliable, but why are they unreliable? Okay, so if it is from a very old person, the account is from a very old person, it would be unreliable for the simple reason that she or he might suffer from a fading memory. It's quite common. So you say that it's not very reliable. And if you have evidence like this, you try to corroborate this from other sources, such as about this road. You get information from somebody like a watchman who worked in one of the cashew factories, very old, but who have some faint recollection of having been told about the work on this road. This is a corroborative evidence. All right. So this is about sources. Now, yeah, people often ask this question. Okay, is there a special language for writing a thesis? Okay, are you required to write a thesis in the third person? Meaning you can't ever say, I found this evidence to be unreliable. I found this source to be unreliable. I found the novel in a particular repertoire in a library, etc. So I think this is simply an outdated notion that you can't use the word I. Quite a few people use this. Okay, in serious articles, you look up a writer like a translation scholar like Lefebvre, who frequently uses the first person. Okay, in his path-breaking essay, Beyond Interpretation or the Business of Rewriting, he begins the essay by saying that he has stolen the title from Jonathan Culler, another well-known scholar. Okay, I have stolen this title from Jonathan Culler, and I'm happy that many people will not recognize that I have stolen this. Very interestingly. Okay, he sets the tone at the beginning of this essay by talking in the first person. So, okay, you'll say that this is an essay, a paper, not a research thesis dissertation. But people have done that in dissertations also. Look at several dissertations of people working on working in political science in translation. Dissertations which later appear as books. So I think this is quite a silly kind of restriction you can't use. And once, not long ago, I came across a research scholar who worked under Meenakshi Mukherjee, the writer, okay, famous writer. So Meenakshi Mukherjee, it seems, insisted that you have to use a certain kind of elevated language. I'm using the word elevated little, as you know, ironically. So what is elevated? What is low? What is middling? All these are very relative concepts. So I wouldn't say that there is a peculiar language, a particular language which you can use for research, exclusively for research, or if not exclusively for research, among other things. So you can, of course, when you language is a social construct. So when you're writing on a theme, you definitely use the language that has been used in writing about it. That way, fine. Okay, because only then your thesis will sound as if it belongs to this domain. You have a tradition of writing. Okay, but also remember that you have multiple traditions of writing. When you're writing on a particular topic, there are various ways in which people have written about it. Okay, literary criticism, for example. Not everybody writes like Matthew Arnold. Not everybody writes like Meenakshi Mukherjee. Not everybody writes like Louis Montrose. Okay, not everybody writes like Derrida or Foucault. You have different styles of writing, different takes on issues. So I wouldn't say that there is a peculiar writing addiction which is peculiar to dissertations, writing dissertations. I'm primarily talking about humanities and languages, okay, with which I'm familiar. But I think this is equally valid for research in science. Okay, and for science, definitely, if there are scholars working on science topics, they know that there is a peculiar tradition of writing in science. Okay, probably in science, it's true that you don't use I or things like that. Probably, I'm not very sure. Well-known writers like Carl Sagan, writing on astrophysics, have said things in the first person. Okay, in one particular instance, he talks about his family. Okay, his wife, who was his co-worker for some time, before launching on to the left brain, right brain split. Okay, so in popular science, all the time people are using the first person in speaking about various topics. So I wouldn't insist on, if I were asked as a research supervisor, I wouldn't insist on any particular style or language as the fixed one for research. I don't think it works. I think it can never be accepted. So you write, that's all. So as we talk about language, we realize that it's a social phenomenon. It has been used by lots of people, and over a period of time, a commonly accepted style or a commonly accepted diction develops, in which, because if it's a social phenomenon, people have to converse with each other, and this happens only if there is some kind of convergence. So that convergence you can definitely expect in writing dissertations. Okay, over a period of time, a style or a diction is developed. There's a large amount of overlap which you accept as a person living in society, but not more than that. Doesn't mean that you can you have to stick to very rigid rules of style or diction in writing your thesis. Okay, it won't work. It creates unnecessary problems. Okay, and I've seen students reworking on their dissertations. Research scholars are reworking their dissertation, finding that their language doesn't fit, in quotes. So this is a fundamental problem which research scholars have to address. They have to evolve a style or diction, and again, depending upon what their topic is, naturally a particular style and diction evolves. So other than that, there is no fixed style. Okay. Although certain manuals, I don't remember which I have seen, insist on a particular straight-jacketed style, but I don't think it will work. And here in our part of the world, I don't think research supervisors insist on that. As far as I know, there might be a few research supervisors who insist on adopting a particular style or diction. So that's another. Now, okay. Yeah, one serious issue in research. This is particularly true about research in languages, literature. You're doing research on literature. So when you're discussing the works of an author, when you're discussing a particular text which you have taken up for research, one tendency I found, okay, in my career as a research supervisor, is the habit of simply reeling off the plot of the novel, the story of the novel, so to speak, and going on and on. Okay, so if you let us say you are discussing Arundhati Roy's novel, God of Small Things, very well-read novel, and you go on talking about what happened in Aymanam, what happened in Rahel's household, okay, without for a minute pausing to think how relevant this narration is to your research. In fact, one reason why people do that, one reason why research scholars go on and on the plot of the novel is to fill up the pages. Okay, so they have this fear of the thesis appearing too small. Yeah, this is the question. But remember that if your thesis lacks arguments, if you don't have anything to say, after all, you are working on Arundhati Roy's fiction also. So if in reading God of Small Things, you don't get something crucial, an argument for your dissertation, evaluate, what arguments would you advance? Okay, think of, let us say, Arundhati Roy's description of Aymanam, the village. Okay, many quotations have come in discussions. So what does it imply? What does the description, a particular description imply? The countryside, for example, the Kottayam countryside, Aymanam, Pala, all those places. So is it simply veracity? Okay, or are the descriptions indicative of the mood in the novel, or let us say, of what is going to come, impending events? You can sometimes say impending disaster. So this is one thing. So without such a purpose, a description is useless. Okay, or even the plot. What happened to Rahel? Okay, what happened to baby Kochama? So all these details, unless they somehow score a point in your argument, I don't think it's of use. In any case, it certainly helps you pad up your dissertation. This, by the way, is there a particular size recommended for a dissertation? As far as I'm aware, there is no size recommended. In fact, I have a creeping feeling that the smaller your dissertation is, the easier it will be for the referee to value, right? So that's true. I've seen very bulky dissertations, 350, 400 pages. Just to look at it is frightening. Okay. When you see you have a very a kind of phobia. When will you finish looking at this? On the other hand, if you have a smaller dissertation, say 200 pages roughly, okay, all included, bibliography, conclusion, introduction, everything put together, around 200 or less. So what do you do? Okay, you are feeling you can complete it in time. My dissertation was some in the beginning. There were 240 pages. Okay, in fairly large type, I remember, 13. And it didn't take much for the referees. That was way back. I said I started research in 87, but I was a poor research scholar, so I left it and then rejoined 8 years later, completed in 2000. And I remember the decisions coming back from the referees in about 4 months' time, both referees. So probably the size was a factor. Okay, although I wouldn't bet on it, I wouldn't like to bet on it, but size was certainly a factor. Now, what would be the smallest thesis? I saw this at FLU, where I did a diploma in 1987. I believe it was called the syntactic structure of John is easy to please. If I remember right, this was just 73 pages. So I'm trying to relocate. I searched the net yesterday, couldn't find the thesis. But of course, it would be there in FLU now. Those who have done something in FLU, diploma, or MLit, or MPhil, or PhD would definitely, in linguistics especially, would definitely have seen this. So you can write a manageable, very useful, argumentative, okay, valid dissertation in just 73 pages, or let us say 100. Okay, it would have been a little more when it was submitted as a dissertation, 100 pages. So what does this mean? This means that size doesn't count. Even if you write a dissertation of 400 pages and the referee gets irritated in doing something, because there's nothing new in this. There's nothing in the dissertation which tells the referee that you have worked for your dissertation, other than simply reading up text and quoting from them. Without actually advancing any kind of argument, any kind of, without solving any research question. Okay, all right. So this, I think, is the crux of the matter. There's no prescribed size for a dissertation. Many research supervisors would, of course, personally on their own, advise their research scholars to write a dissertation in such and such a number of pages. But apart from the fact that it's a personal observation, I don't think it's valid in any way. Okay, so that's one thing. And we started off by discussing how research scholars sometimes try to increase the size of their dissertations by simply dragging on and on, simply narrating the stories. This is a common observation. It's not possible when you are talking, when you are writing something on criticism, for example. We also do research on criticism. Okay. It's not possible. But even there, I have found people quoting unnecessarily. I found people quoting Derrida or Foucault, just because it gives them a certain sense of security. Okay, Derrida can't be wrong, or Foucault can't be wrong, or Louis Montrose can't be wrong. Okay, all those great figures in contemporary or historical criticism, they can't be wrong. So if you quote from them, it gives you a certain kind of authority. Okay. So even there, not simply discussing a novel or a play or a poem, but even in discussing critical works, even discussing theory, you have people quoting endlessly and without a specific purpose. All right. Now, yeah, I think this is what I should have begun with: plagiarism, the great monster that people are scared of. Okay. So what exactly is plagiarism? Yeah, the simple explanation is you are using somebody's ideas as if they are your own. Yeah, see this, as if they are your own. That's plagiarism. Whereas if you quote from somebody, if you refer to somebody's theoretical formulation, it's in no way plagiarism. You see, okay, this is what I read in Derrida or Foucault or Louis Montrose or Dolimo, Jonathan Doyle, whoever it is. Fine, no problem. But here again, there is a peculiar issue. If you are paraphrasing people without mentioning them, that happens quite often. Okay. So if you say the best way to look at fiction is to think of their historicizing capacity and the what did Louis Montrose say? The fictionality of history, something without referring to Louis Montrose. This is definitely plagiarism. Okay, it's well known, but as a research scholar, you have to mention that this is from Louis Montrose. Okay, or if you talk about what Matthew Arnold said about Shelley, an ineffective angel beating in the luminous void. Beating in the void, his luminous wings in vain. You can cleverly paraphrase this. Okay, you can leave out the angel and use something else instead of paragon of virtue, for instance, or instead of beating the wings, luminous wings in the void, you can say struggling in quicksand, whatever. But people in the know, certainly if the referee is well read, he'll know that this is a paraphrased quotation from Matthew Arnold. So such clever paraphrasing, camouflaging the original is also definitely plagiarism. Okay. So the bad thing about plagiarism is the contemporary rules regarding the kind of software that you use to detect plagiarism. Okay, I think we use something called URKUNT, URKUNT, the accepted software, which is used in University of Calicut. Now, let me tell you frankly, I've drawn the attention of the university authorities to this. It's a bad plagiarism. Why is it bad? Because it will simply look at a quotation and judge it as plagiarism. So you have even if it is not judged plagiarism, you have a certain limit for the number of quotations you can use, the percentage of quotations you can for each chapter. For certain chapters, 30, you can have up to 30% quotations. Okay. For certain other chapters, less than 10, like that. And the most interesting thing is that its database is very poor. I looked up, I had a dissertation from Maulana Azad University, Hyderabad, to evaluate. And right from the beginning, I suspected that large chunks had been lifted from somewhere. I tried URKUNT, it didn't work. I went to the library, tried URKUNT. Then the librarian very kindly told me that there are certain other softwares, plagiarism softwares, you can try those things. So I tried one. I picked up some, how many? A dozen instances of plagiarism. Not satisfied with that, I simply Googled certain suspicious ones, and I discovered that most of the dissertation was basically a rehashing of 3 texts, well-known texts. So I went to them, I wrote to the university that is, I can't pass this dissertation. And the interesting thing was she happened to be a Syrian refugee. Okay, so sympathy with refugees is one thing, and dealing with plagiarism is another. I said sorry. So it ended there. Okay. So plagiarism is this. The detecting plagiarism is problematic in this way. Even otherwise, if you write a thesis and you find arguments of others, in this instance I quoted right now. Now, this particular example would show that you can plagiarize in a very clever way, so that it's not discovered. But don't for a moment think that if you are plagiarizing from an obscure text, the referee may not be able to detect. No, not by a long shot, because most of the books are now available online. Even those you don't suspect are available online. So if you just Google your portion, the portion of the text, get it. As simple as that. So I've got it several times. In one instance, I found that almost the entire thesis, it was an MPhil thesis, was lifted from 2 sources. Okay, there you are. So that happened. So I'm not saying that people, everybody does that. Some people do that. A few people, just a handful. I would say, to be honest. Most of the research scholars are honest. But what I'm trying to say is that plagiarism can be detected even without the aid of plagiarism software. So take translation, for example. I consider myself somewhat well, I'm not boasting. So if in a dissertation on translation, if you try to plagiarize almost, most certainly I'll be able to detect it without referring to any source, either online or offline. So there you are. Okay, now let's move on. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this again, I think should have come somewhere in the beginning. Okay. How many of you can type reasonably fast? Just an offhand question. How many of you give your material for other people to type? So this is a skill which I've been trying to make my students and research scholars cultivate for a long time. So look at this. I am trying to, yeah. Let me try to present. I think. Okay. I'll just type certain things. Am I allowed to present? Yes, I am allowed to present. Yeah. These are the notes I made. Okay. Okay. I suppose you can see the screen. Okay.
No.
Yeah. I'm trying to type. So yeah.
So it's just starting.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think you have seen me type, right? Stop sharing. Okay. Now, how many of you can type at this speed? This is not a very fast kind of data entry that you found here. Normally, I can type faster, but because I'm speaking to you here, I'm using another window. I work slowly. Okay. So you don't learn typing these days. When I was young, almost everybody went for typing. I went at a very young age. Honestly, let me tell you, I went to a typing institute not to learn typing, but to flirt with girls. This is a fact. But in any case, whatever the objective of going to learn typing, I found it useful later in life. At the age of 20, I bought a portable typewriter. And I worked on it for more than 20 years before I switched on to a personal computer, PC, in 2004, more than 2 decades. The typewriter I typed my thesis on this typewriter, and later on retyped it in at a computer center when I was in Pondicherry, Karakkal in Pondicherry. So I did it, I finished it in good time. I used to work up to 11:30 or so at night. I think the whole thesis I finished in little more than a week, 10 days time. And then the advantage of doing this is you don't make mistakes. So if you proofread what other people have typed, there are chances that a large number of typos will remain on the page. So I remember this incident. That happened in 1988. 1 year after I did research at the Paleyard Center of what was then Calicut University and which is now Kannur University. So I use this word proscribed, Proscribed, meaning banned. So the typist, one Mohanattan, a good friend of mine, he typed it as prescribed. So the word proscribed was not familiar to him. He read it as prescribed. I was talking about Dr. Zhivago, the Louis Pasternak's famous novel, which was proscribed in the Soviet Union. So Mohanattan said exactly the opposite, which was prescribed in the Soviet Union. So fortunately I saw that, so I corrected it with blade and pen, and it was the original word was reinstated. So it went for refereeing. That was in my preliminary thesis. I left research afterwards, unfortunately, but this preliminary thesis I still have with me. I value it as a somewhat well-written work. Okay, so this is what happens. If you don't know word processing is definitely an important skill that research scholars should cultivate. I don't think many have still acquired that skill. So earlier, as I said, when people used to learn typing, okay, we used to describe people's qualification as Pattam classum typing. So this Pattam classum typing was dissipated. All the typing institutions have been closed down. Fortunately, some are there using computers, personal computers. The institute where I studied is still functioning with 5 systems. So I was thankful. I went for a visit and found that it's still functioning. But even that's not necessary. You don't have to go to a typing institute. You can learn typing by simply typing. Yeah, you learn typing by typing. And if you want instructions, you have such things like typing tutor or the advanced form, typing master, which tells you which finger to use. There are a large number of people who are 2-finger typists, yeah, using only your 4 fingers, which apart from badly hurting your fingers, your speed is seriously affected. Even people who type in offices. So this is one important lacuna which I think research scholars have to address. Okay. Yeah. Now, yeah, the style that you use, style manuals. Okay, lots of arguments, lots of disputes arise, such as what is the style manual that you adopt. Normally, most people doing research in languages and humanities adopt the Modern Language Association style sheet guidelines for research scholars, the 8th edition, which is the current edition. But remember that there are other styles also. American Psychologist Association, APA, Chicago Manual of Style, so on. Some half a dozen style manuals you will find on the net. Okay, all of them for social sciences and languages. And I think the APA style is used in sciences also. So you adopt a standard style of writing, and this is mostly towards the end of your research. Okay, the crux of the thing is what you write, how you write, how you argue your case. Okay, this comes afterwards. So I suggest, as a researcher and research scholar, that you start worrying about this right at the end. The more important thing is your source of research, your arguments, the validity of your arguments, how you have addressed your research question, etc. This is about how you fashion. I don't think there is anything said about style or diction in the narrow sense. Yeah, I said that in the beginning. But in documentation, yes, definitely. When you come to the end, how to document, how to give your references, okay, margins, etc. How to indent your quotations. For all these, you have how to refer to video or audio text. Okay, how to refer to films, how to refer to online material. This is a vast area, but which you can address at the end without worrying about them in the beginning. Of course, when you submit term papers, when you submit chapters, your research supervisor will certainly ask you what happened to, how did you, why did you use footnotes? You could have used endnotes, etc. Okay, so okay, but what I wanted to say besides this is that even when you are doing your MA, you have a taste of this in your fourth sem project, and of course for your MPhil. So I don't know if colleges insist on that, but if you do such things like plagiarism check right at the end of your MA and for your MPhil, it will do a lot of good for research scholars, because when they come to a PhD, they know that this is what they do or have to do. Okay, they've already had a taste of this. They already have a taste of recognizing style manuals. They have a taste of plagiarism. They have seen all this when they come to PhD. So I think ideally that should be the thing. Okay, so one shouldn't worry about writing manuals too much. That's my point. What is more important is your content of research. Okay. Something else. Yeah, and I think I should end with some good news. What is that? The good news is that a research dissertation need not be a record of your academic competence. Yeah. Okay. Saying the opposite of what many of you expected me to say, right? Because the craze for acquiring PhDs has become rampant because of the fear that in a few years' time you cannot become a teacher at a college or university without a PhD. This is a genuine fear. So you have to acquire a PhD. But what I am trying to say is that there are hundreds of teachers in the country, thousands, who are very good scholars and who haven't thought of acquiring a PhD last many years. Okay, so this is not a very vague kind of assurance. If you are talking about yourself as a scholar, as a good teacher, and of course not to speak about thousands of good teachers who have no PhDs. It's not a measure of your scholarship or even your creativity. Okay, if you write a good novel, if you write a collection of poems, if you write a play, if you write a review, or if you post good posts on social media, I think you prove yourself as a good scholar or a very creative person. So what this means is that PhD is an academic necessity. Okay, if I say a necessary evil, you will quarrel with me. So I'm not saying this. But in my case, I don't think my PhD dissertation is the best work I've done. Far from it. Okay, if you look at it, there might be some sparks of creativity in my PhD dissertation, but I don't. Occasionally, I refer to it. That's all. But apart from that, I don't think my dissertation is a measure of my creativity or competence as a teacher or a researcher or scholar. Okay, it just happened. Okay, so which doesn't mean that you neglect your PhD. Okay. Once you are at it, you try to make it the best possible you can. That's all. Okay. So, is there anything else? Let me see. Yeah, I think I've exhausted those things which I thought of saying. So I can now leave the session open for questions. Okay, you can directly. I'm not a monster who frowns at questions. You can ask me any kind of questions. I don't mind responding to them. I'm at your disposal now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherrif sir, for that insightful session. And I think one of the best points, you brought together a lot of our concerns. And I think this craze for research that is there today is the point that is there on everybody's minds. And of course, typing, and I think self-plagiarism is the scariest version of plagiarism today, because we pay attention to everything else, but our ideas are spread all over papers that are published today, our own papers. So yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The forum is open to discussion. The participants may send their queries as messages in the chat boxes.
I've kept my chat
But
box.
before we Yes, sir. But before we go into the discussion, I think Nisha ma'am is here. And yes, now that we already know Sherrif sir and the session, Nisha ma'am will be introducing the resource person for the day. Sherrif sir into a detailed bio of Sherrif sir. Nisha ma'am, please.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. Good morning, all of you. And let me first start with a big apology for all the technical issues that occurred from my side. A big sorry to the resource person, the coordinators and participants who are attending this webinar from all sides of the globe. Most honorable keynote speaker of the day, Dr. M Sherrif, Professor and Head of the Department of English, Calicut University. Respected Principal, Dr. Sister Beena Jose, Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Minimol K, IQAC Joint Coordinator, Ms. Maya Devi Chalisheri, the coordinating members of Research and Consultancy Cell of Vimala College, teachers, researchers, and students from various institutions attending this inaugural session of the Explorigate Research Webinar Series. A very warm good morning to all present here on this virtual platform. Let me at the outset appreciate and thank you for the overwhelming response we received from each one of you for our modest venture. Research is an academic journey or pursuit into the depths of knowledge, and a researcher will have to confront several baffling problems at the start and even during the course of his or her research journey. The webinars arranged under the Explorigate webinar series make an attempt to explore and investigate into the problems that confound the researcher. Sometimes, lack of scientific training in the methodology of research, academic dishonesty or plagiarism, lack of availability of resources, and even lack of confidence in taking up challenging concepts for an in-depth and serious study remain as hurdles in front of every researcher. Within the limitations and restrictions of this webinar imposed by the pandemic, we were able to arrange the platform for discussing various issues and problems that crop up normally during the adventurous journey of the researcher. Sherrif sir has detailed on the issues in research during his session. Our speaker is an eminent scholar, a veteran research guide, a renowned translator, a polyglot, a meticulous researcher who even looked into the minute aspects of research like typing, word processing, who consoled us saying that PhD is only an academic necessity. Dr. Sherrif, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, University of Calicut, did his post-graduation from University of Calicut and PhD from the Veer Narmad Dakshin Gujarat University in Surat. He has a commendable teaching experience of 32 years in different colleges and universities across India. He has translated several works in English, Malayalam, Hindi, Gujarati, and Tamil. Dr. Sherrif is perhaps known to all teachers who handle general English classes under the Calicut University. Yes, Sherrif sir's beautiful translation, Big Fish, is a chapter we teach in general English classrooms. He is currently the chairman of the PG Board of Studies English for the Calicut University. He was also the university nominee for the Board of Studies of the Department of English, Vimala College. He has his published works include Kunyapathuma's Trees with Destiny, which was the first study in English of the works of Bepur Sultan, Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, Egalavya's With Thumbs, the first section of Gujarati Dalit writing in English, and Anne Frankinde Almaratangal, the first collection of translation studies published as an audiobook in Malayalam. He has scripted and anchored the first video on constructivist pedagogy at the tertiary level in India, which was produced by the Educational Multimedia Research Center, EMMRC, University of Calicut. His areas of interest are vast and varied. Apart from his interest in translation, he is also an expert in linguistics and pedagogy. Currently, he is a dynamic and vibrant head of the Department of English, University of Calicut. We are indeed very lucky to have him here today as a speaker of this session. Sir, on behalf of the IQAC and the Research and Consultancy Cell of Vimala College, and on behalf of all participants of this webinar, I extend a very warm and cordial welcome as well as a big thanks to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
The staff and students of Vimala College are immensely proud of the young, energetic, and spirited head of the institution, our principal, Dr. Sister Beena Jose, who is recognized nationally and internationally with several awards and recognitions for her academic and administrative excellence. On behalf of the webinar organizing committee and the participants of the webinar, and with all due apologies for the hitches which happened earlier, I extend a very warm welcome to Sister Dr. Minimal K, the Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, is a highly talented person teeming with innovative ideas. The seminar is the outcome of an ember that fell off from her ignited mind. She is supported by a team of enthusiastic teachers for coordinating this program. The young and energetic IQAC Joint Coordinator, Ms. Maya Devi, the members of Research and Consultancy Cell of Vimala College are all behind the success of this webinar. On behalf of all present for this webinar, I extend our gratitude to Dr. Minimol, Ms. Maya, and all members of Research and Consultancy Cell. This webinar became possible only because of the overwhelming response of its participants. Vimala College extends a very warm and cordial welcome, as well as a very big thanks to each one of you who are attending this webinar series. Thank you all. Thank you. Now the floor is open for discussion. I think many questions are appearing on the chat box. I now hand over the session to be handled by Ms. Maya.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Thank you for your words of welcome also. Sir Sherrif sir, we go into the questions that have come up. So,
I'll start with what I find on the screen here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. There's a question by, I think, Shamsi Krishnakumar. It's about publishing research articles related to the research scholar's PhD. Now, whether there will be an issue of Salamai slicing, as it is called, I don't think it needs to be an issue, because when you're publishing papers on your topic, in your research dissertation, you will definitely refer to them. Okay, you'll quote from your own text. I have written about this. So if that is done, I don't think there will be an issue, because writing a paper is your individual choice. You write a paper, you present it to people, doesn't mean that you can't use it. Okay. Only thing is, if you are reproducing it verbatim, if you are reproducing large chunks of your paper without quoting, yeah, as if you are writing it for the first time, then of course there will be an issue of plagiarism. I don't think otherwise you need to be scared of writing papers, because that is what you're expected to do, plainly speaking. Because by the time you finish your PhD, ideally, you ought to have published at least half a dozen papers, ideally. Okay, you can always write. You can work on a particular area of your broad area that you have chosen. Okay, you can write a paper on it. You can get it, and that actually helps you in your research, because you have done some work on that. All you have to do is to look back at it. Okay, bring those arguments which you used in the paper into your dissertation. All these are fine. I don't think there ought to be any problem. Although some research supervisors scare research scholars on this. I never did do this to my research scholars. They freely publish papers. They haven't had a problem, as far as I'm aware. Okay. Now, there is another one which appeared here. I'll start from the top. Tertiary sources. Yeah, this is by Dr. Suman Deepak Munkor. Can you give some more examples of tertiary sources? So tertiary sources are simply indices, encyclopedias, bibliographical compilations, which give you a compilation, for a bibliography, large bibliographical compilation, for example, which gives you, for example, you can have some for dissertations. Yeah, that's also a tertiary source. And I think, what is it called? Shodh Ganga. Yes, Shodh Ganga, I think, is a tertiary source. Although I don't know if you can get whole dissertations from Shodh Ganga. Shodh Ganga is a good example of tertiary source. So there are many such sources. Okay, and indirectly, okay, I don't know if I can say that the net itself is a tertiary source. Okay, can say. But as a tertiary source, it not only gives you the indices, but it can also give you the whole work. Okay, you can get novels, you can download novels or poems from the net. So the net is another kind of source, okay, which may function as a tertiary source. Okay, but one doesn't have a good description for it, what kind of source you can call net. Okay, so that can be, but it functions as a tertiary source sometimes, as in this case of giving you all these online. All right. Yeah. How to choose a journal and what should be done if our paper is rejected? Simple. Send it to another journal. Yeah. Some journals reject, but research scholars, as they go along, they become very familiar with the kind of tactics that you employ. Looking at certain journals, decide what kind of journals, what kind of papers will be accepted. Even going to the extent of analyzing the psychological makeup of the editor, that also happens. Some research scholars are very clever at that. They think over the psychological makeup of the editor, if he's somehow familiar, okay, and decide whether this paper will be accepted. All these are fine. So ideally, choose your journal wisely. Okay, kind of think over think over the possibility of your paper getting published in a journal. That happens. Many scholars succeed actually. Okay, or even make inquiries. Why not? Whether there's a special coming up, whether the journal will accept the kind of topics you are working on, etc. Okay. Yeah, this is Shamsi Krishnovar's question I have answered. Aspects of literature review in research. Yeah, why not? People use them all the time. So in JSTOR, for example, in Calicut University, I think you can get papers and reviews from JSTOR free. If you are a research scholar, you'll be given an ID. You can download these freely. And some reviews are very good. Okay. Recently, I came across a good review of Andre Lefebvre's famous essay, Translating Poetry, 7 Strategies and a Blueprint. One of his most well-read essays. So there's a good review of this, telling you what this essay basically contains, how it approaches translating poetry, etc. So reviews are definitely useful. You don't have to go for full-blooded critical articles, not necessary. Reviews are good enough. Hundreds of good reviews appear every day. People who have read the book, and I think a good review is like a good class. Okay. Think of Ian McEwan's famous novel, Amsterdam. So I remember that was one of my best classes as far as I can remember, because I liked the novel immensely, how it dealt with the media and all those things. So I prepared well and took a class. Unfortunately, I haven't recorded it. Recording was not so popular in those days. There you are. So a review is definitely a good material for research. Yeah, plagiarism I have already. Mini Krishna's question here. Self-plagiarism. Okay. There's no self-plagiarism. Yeah.
Sherrif sir, I think there are queries also. Shraddha Saroj ma'am has asked how to choose a journal and what should be done if our paper is rejected.
Yeah, I have answered that question.
Okay.
You came here. I have answered that question. How to choose a journal? I have answered that question. I said that if you send a paper to a journal and it gets rejected, you have to send again. But then you have to choose wisely which journal to send you. I have answered that question already.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Then, is it possible for us to do medical humanities? Yeah, there is a research going on. I don't know if it is finished at Kakkuzhi-Maliakkal, Thrissur, on medical fiction. Is it what is meant here in this question? Medical humanities. Or is it about medical research and its repercussions on the public? I didn't understand the question properly. Can the person come alive on the mic?
Gopinath, sir?
Is it possible for us to do medical humanities? That was the question. So, is it about fiction on or other kinds of writing on medical issues?
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes.
Sir, I am Gopinath from Tamil Nadu, sir.
What was the question?
Sir, I want to, because I know that medical humanities is a emerging field, I wanted to PhD on medical humanities, like medical narratives. So, I want to ask whether it is possible for us to choose some literary works based in the light of medical humanities.
Yeah, I think I understood your question right. That's what I said in the beginning. There is a research. There is a research going on at Kakkuzhi-Maliakkal College, Thrissur.
Okay, sir.
Which is about fiction on medical issues. Robin Cook, all those people who wrote on medical issues, coma. I don't know if she has taken Robin Cook as one of the authors, but she's definitely working on this area. Definitely you can do. But the problem is that in many research institutions, research supervisors are wary of accepting innovative proposals. Yeah. So it depends upon how flexible your research center is. If your research center is flexible, I don't think of any reason why it's not possible. It ought to be possible. It's a very valid area of research. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying my take.
Okay. What else? Tertiary sources. Plagiarism. Yeah, this is by Anne Mary. Could you suggest some points to remember before publishing a paper in a book? Yes. Yeah. Many students and research scholars ask me this question. The only thing I can say is that when it's a paper, there is a peculiar format to it. Okay. When it becomes a chapter in a book, it changes slightly. And if you are using this as a chapter in a book you have written yourself, there again there will be a difference. So even turning your dissertation into a book, I don't think many students or research scholars are doing it. They want to do it. If you think your dissertation is a valuable document, I think definitely you should turn it into it. I have given this advice to at least half a dozen research scholars in recent times. To some research scholars whose dissertations are evaluated, definitely I asked them to make a book of their dissertation because it will be available to more people. It will definitely make you more famous as a writer. The only thing is that there are slightly different formats. There are differences between a paper which appears in a journal and the same content reformulated as a chapter in a book, either your own book or somebody else's book. Yeah, as one of the essays, articles. Okay, so it changes. If it is somebody else's collection, it is somebody else's book, a book edited by somebody else. Probably there won't be much changes expected. But if you are making it part of a book, you are writing yourself, then of course the more changes will be required. Go for that. Anything else? There's time for some more questions. You can either raise them directly. I'm waiting.
Participants may type in their queries in the chat box.
You can either come live on the mic
or come
you can type your question. Meanwhile, somebody typed that my song was good. Thank you. So, definitely, I didn't say it so well.
Sir, there's a question in the chat box. Amal Dev sir has asked, while translating something, I couldn't find an apt word for an open access journal in Malayalam. Can you help me out?
Where is it? At the top or?
Just post. No, sir. Below, towards the end.
Towards the end. Look. Okay. Open access journal. Okay. Open access journal. You can have a word like Swadandra. I think what you mean is something that anybody can see. Is it an online journal? Open access journal. You can use it. You can use such things like Swadandra Prasthikaranam journal or what else? It's a technical term. Probably a term is not yet arrived in Malayalam. I'll check it up anyway. For example, even for free software, Linux, the term used is Swadandra software. Since that you are free to access it. Probably you can try that.
Yes, okay. Sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, Shraddha Saroj ma'am has asked again, in case we don't get the expected results, what should be done?
What Can the question be amplified?
That's what, Shraddha ma'am, there's a little bit of vagueness in the question.
Can you amplify that? Yes. Shraddha Saroj.
I think Shraddha ma'am is typing out the question.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
In detail.
Meanwhile, I tried to answer this by Jackson David. When we do a quantitative research, how many respondents are needed? And for a qualitative research, how many respondents are required? I don't think there is any limit set for either. Okay, it must be viable, that's all. So for instance, if you are working on a topic like the effects of the paradigm shift in secondary education in Kerala post 2007, generally you expect the number of respondents to be more because there are a number of stakeholders, teachers, students, employers, and it's something that was implemented across the state. Okay, so definitely you need more respondents. On the other hand, if you are looking at something like, what shall I say? The emergence of a shift towards public education in Thiruvananthapuram district, let us say, you're doing this in part of language teaching. Now, there, of course, the area, hinterland is small. How many respondents do you need? You need a cross-section of the teachers and students from the district. Naturally, your number would be less. That's all. So there is no prescribed number for anything. Okay, depending upon the size of your the area, hinterland of your research, the magnitude of your research problem, etc. No fixed number of respondents. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there is a there is this request from Sumi TP, who has come online. She has typed, I did register, but didn't receive the link for the meet. So kindly, please note my mail ID. Okay. I think
so it's done, sir. So it's done.
Okay.
Has been noted.
Shraddha Saroj's question has come. Being a nutrition research scholar, I try to develop food products that can address malnutrition. But at the end, in case I am unable to fulfill the nutritional criteria as I expected, then how to fix it? You can't fix it, I think. Fixing, if it is used in the derogatory sense, you are trying to develop food products that can address malnutrition. Okay, so if your research, if you fail to it, you have to confess your failure. You can't fix it. How can you fix it? If you try to it, and you can give the results as your you've tried various combinations, permutations and combinations, but failed to arrive at something which would give which can be given as nutritional supplement. That's all. I don't think people can fix it. Okay. Try to find something, you don't find it. Then in your research itself, you state that these are the things that you did, but you couldn't arrive at a final solution. But I don't think any research will come to that. Some nutrition is not a difficult area. I don't think it is, as far as I know. Okay.